Good morning, good evening, and keep it tight. Welcome back to Liquidmatrix Security Digest Hacker Radio Podcast, episode 0x7B. Here with me, right out of the gate, I blow it. All right, here with myself this week are myself, Dave Lewis, and James Arlen on the Wheels of Steel. I should point out that this show does not represent the thoughts, intentions, plans, or strategies for world domination of our employers, ex-girlfriends, wives, belly button lint, or the militant wing of the Girl Guides. It is solely our own personal opinions. We make no accuracy. There's twice. Like I said, we make no guarantees as to the accuracy, validity, sobriety, relevance, and importance of anything we say or do here. My portion of this podcast is brought to you by Americans blowing up parts of their country to celebrate their Independence Day. No word on whether or not the Brits are having turkey today. That remains to be seen. Hey, Jamie, welcome back.
Hi. You really need to stop depending on me to fix it in post.
No, let it roll. I goofed.
Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
This is apparently Penta-pod, as it is the fifth in a row
Which is surreal.
being largely in a row. Could probably do more, but it seems that people like these things, which is kind of weird. At least our 7 subscribers say so. So why don't y'all tell your friends?
The really funny thing about all of this is that we have had people emailing, not directly into the mailbag, but I've had a couple of people directly said they thought something had gone horribly wrong and that old podcast episodes were being downloaded because they couldn't believe that there were new episodes. So they thought something must have been wrong. I found that highly entertaining.
Blame the computers. It's always the computers.
True.
We got news. We got a couple of fun breaches. We got some cyber dumbassery. Mailbag entry. Oh, see, now it's contagious. And some brieflies, and then we're out.
Woohoo!
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
The start is everything old is new again in this industry. And it turns out that symptomatic patching is still a thing that people do. You'd think that they would have learned that lesson over the last 25 years, that if you patch one symptom, but you don't fix the underlying problem, guess what happens? Somebody else attacks the underlying problem. In this case, it's our good friends from the crusty old world of enterprise software, Progress Software, and the MOVEit product, which is a ETL, which is like a move files around, file mover kind of application that's at the core of a lot of business functions that your information goes flying through. And last year it was broken, and now it's broken again. And the fun part about it, this is in CVE 2024-5806. You can bypass authentication of the SFTP model. It's a 9.1 out of 10. And the way that you bypass it is with null.
What?
There's a really great technical write-up. It's linked in the show notes from an article on ours, and there's no flaws like the old flaws, and enterprise will continue to have crusty old problems like this as long as, in my opinion, proprietary software and budgets that don't include making things better as part of the plan. It's whatever's new and shiny we'll jump right into. Like we'll talk about it in a little bit. The places that AI shows up that it doesn't need to be, versus doing a good job of the basics, like having a file mover that moves files the way that it's supposed to.
It's a feature.
Yeah.
Kind of leaves you feeling rocked, I gotta admit.
Was that a segue, Dave?
That was a segue, and it was a very dad joke kind of segue. But you know what? It's one of those things that I can't help but be fascinated with, much in the vein of passwords, which I have been very much fascinated with recently. There is a new data breach or apparent data breach that has been posted just today, being July 4th. And It is apparently the largest one that has ever found its way onto the internet, to the tune of 10 billion passwords. Now, it appears to be cobbled together with various different data breaches. I don't know how much of this is current versus um, legacy ones from other data breaches, but apparently the attackers released credentials from the likes of a law firm called Simmons and Simmons, online casino called Ask Gamblers, and student applications for Rowan College. And it's just absolutely staggering the size and scope of this. It's ugly, and it's one of those things. It's like, how does this keep happening? And it's really kind of blowing my mind that we're still having this sort of conversation after all these years. And when
Yeah,
you look at informationisbeautiful.net, it's a website that I always bring up that does data visualizations. One of the things it does is data visualizations for data breaches.
we linked
It's
to that
amazing.
in the show
What's
notes a
that?
little while. We linked to that in the show notes a little while
We
ago.
we did indeed, and I love bringing it back up again because it's the visual that really hits home. When I share that, when I give a talk, the audience always goes, "Whoa," because we hear about it in the news all the time, and it comes to the point where we become desensitized, and a lot of people just go, didn't affect me, I'm not going to worry about it." However, with 10 billion sets of credentials, I would say the odds are not in your favor in this particular case. Make sure you're checking your password. Make sure that they are not haven't been compromised. Check to make sure that your credit has not been compromised. All those fun things. I
It's
actually have figured out I have enough free credit reporting now to last me several decades.
lifetimes. Given that it's a feature that's built into, not that I'm trying to shill for your employer either, but it is built into a modern password manager, and honestly has been for a very long time. It was like back in 1Password 3 or 4 that that feature came out.
It was very
There's
early.
Have I Been Pwned. Safari will do it with Keychain on your iOS devices. Chrome does it with the password manager built into Chrome. Like, there's no longer an excuse for highly reused or weak ass passwords.
Mhm.
And we've talked for you and I 20 something years about how the computational capabilities of the bad guys keep getting better and better. And if you were recently shopping for a GPU, you'll understand just how unbelievably expensive those things have gotten. But adding another 2 or 3 characters onto your password significantly makes it more difficult to brute force it.
Yep.
Adding 10 characters even better. Moving all the way towards hardware backed MFA, and there's a ton of technological things in there that, as more and more of your core identity ends up living on the devices, becomes more and more important that you keep track of it. And the thing that the thing that jumps up and makes me want to scream all the time is the number of people who have no idea how to reestablish their access to things. So, Dave, if I took your phone, your
Yes.
laptop,
Yes.
your spare laptop,
Yes.
your iPad,
Yes.
your watch,
Yes.
and I tossed them all in a fun car shredder, how long would it take you to regain access to your stuff?
Before or after the entire week of sitting in my backyard not worrying about it?
Things that you've lost is the phone numbers for your family members, because I'm guessing you can barely remember your own, let alone your wife and kids.
Literally
So,
the only phone number I remember is my wife's. That is hands down the only one.
yeah.
Which is kind of sad when you think about it. But when you look at the breadth and depth of it, there's so many. But yeah, to your point, to recover, could probably do it with, once I was done weeping openly, probably could do it in very short order.
Okay, well, I know that I can because of how I've set up actual password management, actual backups. Like, even 321 backups, people are not doing a good job of anymore. You can tell the city I live in didn't do a 321 backup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. But, fundamental fundamentals around authentication credentialing and your ability to regenerate that credentialing, whether it's the real world stuff with, passport, birth certificate, driver's license piece, whether it's you lost your wallet when you're on vacation, what do you do next?
Yep.
Like all of these things, and they all get tangled up in things like this password compilation from hell.
The internet dropped. Go figure.
Minor interruption there because packets. So with this release of this password list from hell, one of the things that I find so frustrating is we've spent years training people with sets of wrong messages. One of the sets of wrong messages that we've hit them with kind of over and over again is complex is better. Sorry, NIST is recanted. That's not a thing anymore. Longer is better. Don't write it down. Oh, sweet, precious summer child, your memory sucks. Write it down. If we switch into sort of vendor customer mode here, because we can do that, one of the things that I have a very difficult time with at work is getting people to understand that while I can administratively regain access to their vaults on the corporate side, if they're using the personal side, I can't.
Yep.
They were supposed to print out that emergency kit and scrawl their password on it and then put it somewhere safe, like with your mortgage papers or your passport or, I don't know, nudie pics. Like, keep it in a place that's safe so that you can recover it.
Yeah.
Because if you've got that and you've got a browser, you're back into all of your stuff.
And to be clear, if they can't gain access to their private vaults, we can't do it either, because we're on
Right.
zero knowledge principle.
Which is the way that you're supposed to do these things. And so taking the messages that we've been telling them for 20 something years and unwinding that and moving towards, dealing with the questions that I get from staff at work, like, why is YubiKey better than push verify? And it's like, because you'll know if you're touching your YubiKey, and you won't necessarily know if you're just randomly stabbing accept on the push verifies. So like, the whole thing is so frustrating because it's a hell that we've made for ourselves,
Yes.
and there's too many voices that have the wrong incentives. I have an incentive that says make this stuff easier to do correctly.
Mm-hmm.
If I make the hard way the correct way, nobody's going to do it. I make the easy way the correct way, and people are going to do it. I told the story a million times about working at a bank and want to do full disk encryption on the laptops. And they put together this 40-minute training program for people on how to use the full disk encryption on their laptops. And it's like, what's the threat we're trying to solve? And it's like, well, we don't want them to sleep the machines. We want them to hibernate the machines. And I'm like, great. What is costing a GPO? What does it cost to push a GPO? I'm like, 50 cents. I'm like, great. Let's push a GPO that just turns off sleep. The choices for lid switch are now nothing and hibernate, and call it done. You don't need to train them anything. Yeah, but then their machines will take a little longer to wake up. And I looked at them and I said, given how many agents you load on those machines, those of you that were around 20 years ago will remember it legitimately took 15 minutes to boot a computer. I am not kidding.
That was one of my biggest frustrations of that place that we used to make work with the electricity thingies. I remember every time a vendor came in, they're like, "Oh, it'd only take up a certain percentage of CPU." And then we sat down and spec'd it out, and it was like 60. If I loaded in all these agents from all these different vendors, it was like 60% GPU or not GPU, CPU, and it was just like eating it up. And heaven forbid it was time for the antivirus scan.
So my immediate previous employer was Salesforce, and every Wednesday at noon we got lunch.
Mm. I did that. Remember, I set it up on Mondays at lunchtime just because it was absurd.
I had like a 6 or an 8 core MacBook Pro, and the fans would turn up to 9 million, and it was useless.
Yeah.
For an hour.
Actually, kind of reminds me of you remember Encase? When I used to use that software, as soon as I started
Guardians. What?
capture, as soon as I started capture, they called it the white screen of coffee because the whole GUI would just turn white, and you just go grab a coffee and come back half an hour later. Maybe it was back.
Yeah.
I'm sure they
Strong.
fixed that by now. I'm
Wrong,
sure.
maybe. Speaking of things that are hard, stopping the breaches. Apparently, the toughest thing that goes on. You got a good one, and then I got a good one.
It's really again, it gets back to the frustration, because when we were talking about earlier about using good passwords, using multi-factor authentication, they're all great when they work, but sometimes they don't work. Unfortunately, today Twilio has announced that a data breach has occurred where attackers have leaked 33 million Authy user phone numbers. So the attackers figured out how to puzzle out the phone numbers associated with these accounts, and were able to gain access to that information. Now, they came out and said that the information included some account IDs and some other non-personal data associated, which doesn't sound that bad on the surface, but when they have this level of access, if they're able to dupe the SIM cards and things like that, this could get real ugly real fast for some people. I feel absolutely terrible for them because it's a holiday in the US right now, and I can't even imagine getting that call when you're sitting there, 2 beers in, having a barbecue.
Well, and I think super importantly as well, Twilio is the kind of thing that ends up in your infrastructure whether you planned it or not.
I
It's kind of fundamental plumbing.
I
It's
even
all
have it in my home network.
yeah,
So with certain systems go down, I get a text message.
yeah.
And
I don't use Twilio, I use something else, but yeah, same problem. It's fundamental plumbing. Um, the gift that keeps on giving though is the Snowflake. Was it a breach? Wasn't it a breach? The latest is Neiman Marcus, a U.S. retailer, who confirmed they've had a data breach, and they are pointing at Snowflake and saying it's all their fault.
so last episode, I brought up the query. Actually, no, it was 2 episodes back. I said, is this now at the Black Swan level? And I was told no, but as this grows, I'm starting to wonder, like, how much access do they have, the attackers? Because I'm assuming that's what it was. But I'm longing for the post-mortem. Transparency is going to win a lot of trust with people, and I really hope to see that level of post-mortem, yeah, at some point in the future. I don't expect it right now because they're still going through it, but
Oh,
that would be an interesting case study, to say the least.
yeah, in this case, though, it's about just shy of 65,000 people. Data stolen varies, but usually includes names, contact info, birth dates, gift card numbers, etc. And unsurprisingly, it's for sale on the dark web.
And here we are, the dark web. Why do you guys crave the dark web so much? Because the dark web is exclusive.
Get
100,
out.
yeah, no, seriously, 150 grand in exchange for the
Wait,
archive.
that's it?
Yeah,
That's
which
really
also
low.
includes the. This is what I mean. There's weird and hinky going on.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna commit to the number of things you would have to do for a true, you know, multimodal black swan, you know, set up permanent shop here, and then ask for 150K, because it includes things like the last 4 digits of social security numbers, customer transaction data, emails, shopping records, employee data. Um, there's a tool. It's potentially a trigger word, but our word flake that's used specifically to target Snowflake accounts. Um, and the bad guy in this case, bad girl, Spider with a 1 and a 3 instead of those letters, said they tried to negotiate a ransom payment, and Neiman Marcus said no because U.S.
Good for them.
companies are pretty much required to say no now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hot mess, and it's apparently the gift that keeps on giving. So I would have told you I didn't think it was a black swan, but if this dribble continues,
That's
it's
my
like
curious.
it's like following the deer in the forest that you shot. Like, eventually you're going to find the whole deer.
Dude, you shot Bambi?
No, I shot Bambi's mom.
It
Also,
was
Bambi's
you.
Bambi's a dude.
Oh yes, that is it. There you go.
Wreck your brain with
Still,
that.
Bambi's super cute though.
Um,
Yeah, you're right, and this is why I keep coming back to this, because not because I want it to be, but this just smells like this is going to grow as it unravels, and it's going to become much bigger than what we see it as currently. And that's why I'm absolutely wanting to see this post-mortem, not to beat up on Snowflake in any way, shape, or form,
oh,
but for all of us to learn, because this is one of the things that in security we don't do a great job of, is capturing lessons learned and sharing them amongst the everyone around the campfire.
you know,
Yeah, and Jack Daniels did a great job there for a bit. I don't know if he's still working on it, where he was trying to capture the history of our.
he's not working anymore, dude. He retired.
I know he retired, but I didn't know if he was still working on that one.
It's like blacksmithing and traveling and doing all the fun things that you and I wish we could do, except we have jobs.
Yeah, kind of envious of him right
Hmm.
now. I miss
And I
that.
tell him regularly too. Um, Speaking of forest animals and dumb human tricks, we're into the derps here, and this one is just, it's hilarious. So you've heard of the AIs, right? And how you want to have like your always on AI assistant with you.
Yep.
Because you're not carrying around a very powerful compute device in your hand all the time. You need to be able to clip one of these suckers to your clothing without using the I had a BlackBerry belt clip situation. In this case, it's the Rabbit R1 AI pin on your shirt gadget thing.
The pin on your shirt. Does it
Yeah.
have to be a red shirt?
No.
Good.
It's an orange device with an OLED screen that points outward, though, which is fun.
What?
Yeah, and basically it's just Android, but in a not phone box. What's really cool is that there's a group of developers and researchers that are trying to jailbreak it. And in doing so, they discovered that it has hard-coded API keys to Rabbit's SendGrid account, which means, a couple of them. A text-to-speech provider called 11 Labs and the SendGrid account. And it means that pretty much every response that was ever given by an R1 device is available via this top-level API key that's hard-coded in not cryptographic storage on the device. And so I'm gonna take you back in time to the olden days when John Callis was working on Black Phone
Oh
and
right.
being very concerned that there was no good secure way to store keys on Android devices, which is why they were busy trying to create a device that would store keys in a good, solid, secure way. Those lessons not learned. No, they hard coded, like GitHub Secrets Manager catches this.
Mm-hmm.
And all that means is they were using, assuming they're using GitHub, they're using a private repo, not on an enterprise plan, because the secret scanner doesn't reach into private repos on team plans.
Yeah.
And like this is a preventable, what the hell are you doing level.
We can even simplify it more than that by saying stop hard coding keys. I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation for how many decades now?
At least two.
Yeah, and that's too many.
Scope your keys. Stop with the all access pass. This is not an e-ticket at Disney World. Come on.
Remember the good old any rule in firewalls? Those still happen.
Your firewall is the thing that's preventing my application from working correctly.
Oh God.
So continuing down the are you effing kidding me? If you haven't been spending most of this week dealing with this one, then we definitely need to trade jobs. Fine folks over at Qualys decided that July is the new August.
Explain.
Well, they have a logo, they have a fun name, and they have a CVSS 9 plus vulnerability in SSH.
They didn't
This is
drop
the.
that today, did they?
Oh no, they dropped it earlier this week.
Oh, okay.
On Monday, which was a holiday here.
In Canada, yes.
And a good chunk of my security team is based in Canada. Don't worry, we covered it. Well, no, seriously, it took us 34 hours to finish patching. So, like,
Oh, wow.
done. But it's called regreSSHion,
Of course it is.
remote unauthenticated code execution in OpenSSH server. And it is legitimately a regression of a previous flaw. But it's been out there for a long time. And if it wasn't for if it wasn't for the logoing, and if it wasn't for the I've got the organization tuned to expect this sort of thing around summer camp.
Yeah. No, that's usually when it happens.
Not a month before summer camp. And in this case, the original bug is CVE 2006 5051. Obviously 2006.
06?
Yeah. And the regression was introduced in October of 2020.
All right. So 06. So this vulnerability is old enough to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on exactly what date it was in 2006. But yeah. Yeah, it's a whole lot of work at a time when I wasn't expecting it. Like we literally balance things organizationally so that when one of these things happens, not last year, but the year before, it was a Postgres thing. So we were like, and we'd worked with Wiz, we'd built some security tooling to help out with the problem so that Wiz could release it at the same time. Like, I understand how this stuff works, but it was centered around that expectation of when, and these guys, like one of those horrible Jack in a Box things from the 70s toy box.
Yep. They were terrifying for me as a kid.
Yeah. Well, we got one of those this week.
The little face always looked demonic. But yeah, no, and that's one of those frustrating things is they always pop up at the worst possible times. Like Log4j happened over the December holidays there. So it was just like, wow. And it was actually one of those moments where I was thankful that I'm not in an operational role anymore. But I felt absolutely terrible because I had lived through that so many times in other types of things.
Yeah. Here's the killer, though. Here's the killer. I'm also cranking out, not just for the, not holding to the August date line, but also cute name plus logo. That's so 10 years ago, Dave. Hey,
Oh, my heart
10
bleeds.
years
My
ago?
heart bleeds.
It was 10 years ago, Dave.
I remember when it broke, when Heartbleed broke. I was in a bar in Montreal with my team. We had just finished at a client site, and we were out there just having a drink, talking, and all of a sudden our phones all started blowing up, and we just went into complete triage mode right there in the middle of the bar.
10 years ago.
I got nothing. I just, yeah.
So, time for mailbag.
Let's go to the mailbag.
All right. This one is very obviously coming in from overseas. We get a Swedish hi, Liquidmatrix. Are you going to be keeping it up? Really?
Really?
Especially as it is now summertime. Your friends from the blue and yellow furniture store. So, given that that's
Swedish, where's the other screw?
That's literally the halfway point between us. There's the yes and the no. So I want to take a vacation, Dave. I really, really do. And I don't know if I can actually write out enough Post-it notes that'd help you get all this done. So I think what we're going to do is preload with some timed release stuff. So this will be less newsy, more ranty, but make sure that we can get some time off. But all of you viewers out there sitting in front of your YouTubes will get to stare at our goofy faces.
That's not a selling point. I don't think that's a selling point.
Well, keeping them short is.
Hey. Vertically challenged.
No, Dave, this is about the length of the episodes. Do you know once upon a time we actually did an episode that was so long we had to split it because the podcasting software wouldn't accept it being that long.
I absolutely remember that, and I actually am stunned to this day that we were at 250,000 listeners at that point in time, that they actually took the time to listen to the whole thing, and that was just blew my mind.
Hour and 42 minutes long. It's crazy. We are, however, coming to the sort of happy point. One of the things that we're getting a lot more of with these modern platforms is details on when people bail. And this is about the time when we should be talking about ending the episode because that's what keeps the customers out there happy. A little short, sweet, fits in your commute kind of listening.
Exactly.
Which means it's time for brieflies. I got a lame one. You want to hear my lame one?
Let's go for it.
All right, so it's work related. Since we've been talking about your work the whole damn episode, I did a podcast for work with another CISO who's not a curmudgeon, and we talked about some really interesting parts of the crossover point between security and compliance. And it's actually interesting enough that I listened to it again, despite having said it the first time. So, might be worth a listen. How about you?
Well, I have another data breach, which I couldn't figure out where to put it, so I just threw it in here. TeamViewer has admitted today, or actually July 1st, they admitted they had been compromised. And an APT group, APT 29, which is apparently a Kremlin-backed group, had compromised their systems, made off with their directory and all sorts of passwords. And yeah, so that could be a spicy one going forward. This is one of those things where it's like no matter who you are, it is only a matter of time before the attackers come looking for you. So be ever vigilant, do the basics well. We have really gotten away in so many instances. We've gotten away from our core fundamentals, and we have to make sure we're doing that network zone segmentation, all the rest of it. We need to get back there because unfortunately, when we're looking at organizations out there, I know I'm gone beyond briefly at this point. When we go organizations out there that have, about 52% of them made it to the cloud, and then the cat comes in. But there's still a large swath of companies that are still on-prem. They're still doing it old school. So they are, sitting ducks in some cases. So I don't want them to have a bad day, but make sure that you are being vigilant.
Yeah, and I think in this case, the other piece of advice that's especially important is as you coagulate access, you need to be careful. This is a place where, almost especially in sort of the home lab crowd, you can end up with access to all of your stuff is gated behind one password, not one password, but behind a password in something like TeamViewer. And it's like your desktop PC at home. And it's just not there. Upcoming appearances. You actually have a list all of a sudden.
Yes, now we're getting to the point where I'm actually going to be on the road again. I'll be at summer camp. I will be at B-Sides Las Vegas and Black Hat. I will step into DEF CON for about 12 seconds just to get my badge. And that'll be it for me this year because this is my first year of being retired from DEF CON. I did that for 13 years, and hats off to the speaker operations team for all the good work they do. In October, I'm going to Singapore. In November, I've got IrisCon in Dublin and then Web Summit in Portugal, and it's just going to keep going from there. So it's going to get crazy. How about you?
I'll be at the other end of Starlink connection, somewhere in a forest.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. That's a good one.
Yeah. A little bit of advertising. You should check out Vulnerable You. That would be Matt J, who is still on vacation. He's got more subscribers than we do. And every now and then he throws us a bone and includes us in the newsletter.
And be sure to like and subscribe.
Speaking of Matt, he's not here. I went ditching through the collection for opportunities to embarrass him last week. Now all I've got is a message from his Signal, and it's I'm on a vacation, leave me alone.
Good on you.
Thanks, Matt.
Need that break.
Miss you. Come back someday.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and putting up with our nonsense again for another week. And that's what, 5 in a row now?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Done and done.
Take her slow, let her go.
Bye.